This video will walk you through a step-by-step process for setting up your MTEC FullVIEW monitor for bin level detection. Let's get started. When your FullVIEW monitor is shipped, it will show these labels along the bottom. If you don't have any sensors connected to your monitor yet, you'll see the DISC or disconnected message like we see right now on bins 2, 3, and 4. Once a sensor is connected to a port, your message on that bin will change to the NO_CAL message that's shown on bin 1. This is because your new bin level monitoring system has not yet been calibrated for any bins. We'll get to that in a moment. After performing the physical setup and connecting your sensors, the first step will be making sure that you know which bin is which in your system. To do that, let's change the names and notes on these bins. Anytime you need to make a change or perform an action on a bin, press and hold on the bar area for that bin. Doing so will open the Gauge menu screen. At the top of the Gauge menu screen, you will see a checkbox to enable or disable the bin. When the box is blue and checked, the bin will appear on the main screen. When the box is unchecked, that bin will no longer be visible on the main screen. Pressing and holding on the white space will bring the Gauge menu screen back up to allow the bin to be re-enabled. The Gauge menu screen also gives the options to change display characteristics for the bin, calibrate the bin, set up alarms for the bin, or to get help for your system. We will go through each of these options in this video, but let's start with the display button. Pressing the display button will take you to the Gauge display screen, where you can change the name of your bin, add notes, and change the color of the fill bar. We already saw the name and notes on the main screen, but without a calibration, we haven't seen the fill bar yet. After calibrating, the fill bar color will be the color shown in the gray box on the main screen, and its height will correspond to the level of the bin's contents. For now, we're just going to rename and annotate this bin to make sure that we don't forget which bin is which during our setup process. Press the name field, and let's call this bin North Bin. And we'll add a 1 after that name to remind us that this sensor is plugged into port 1. And we'll say that it's filled with corn. Now, if we wanted to, we could select a different fill bar color. Let's pick yellow. And then we will save our changes. If we exit out of the Gauge menu now, we will go back to the main screen, and we will see the changes we made to our name and notes. We still don't see our fill bar though, so let's get that set up. We will have to perform a calibration. Press and hold on the gray rectangle again to open the Gauge menu. This time we will select Calibrate. If the Calibrate option is not available, your sensor is either disconnected or in an error state. We will discuss those issues later in this video. In the Calibration menu, we have a number of options for defining our bin setup and choosing how to calibrate it. We will talk through each type of bin and the available calibration options. But first, let's make a quick note of the sensor selection options. The most common sensor selection will be the C21, followed by C23. You may also select the 6X if your system is using that sensor model. There is also an option for a custom sensor. If you ordered a custom sensor solution from MTEC, please contact us for further instructions on performing a calibration with that sensor. Now we will move on to the container types. The first container is the standard bin with a flat base. At each step through this process, you will need to acknowledge a pop-up that indicates you will be modifying the calibration for this bin. If you select the standard bin type, you'll have access to all of the calibration options. Select your sensor type. We'll pick the standard C21 for this demo. And then choose the calibration option that best fits your needs. The Easy Calibration option is going to be the quickest and most accurate for the standard bin. We'll start with that one. There are a few requirements that must be met to perform an easy calibration. First, the bin must be empty. Second, the sensor must be mounted in an MTEC bracket on a 30-degree roof pitch. Third, the sensor must be mounted halfway between the edge of the bin and the tip of the roof. And fourth, the bin must not be a hopper style. If all of these things are true, then we can proceed with the easy calibration. Notice the live reading at the top of the bin graphic. This value is showing the distance in feet that your sensor is currently reading. Enter the height of the bin walls by clicking on the blue rectangle and typing in the value on the numeric pad. Hit OK. Now simply hit Calibrate. Acknowledge the pop-up warning since we do want to change the calibration on this sensor. We have now successfully calibrated our sensor using the Easy Calibration method. The next option available for a standard bin is the standard calibration. It's still recommended that you place the sensor halfway up the roof, but it's not required. The standard calibration can be performed when the bin is not empty. Once again, we can see a live reading of the distance to the bin's floor or to the bin's contents. Enter the height of the bin's wall by selecting the bottom blue rectangle labeled Wall Height. Type the number in feet, then hit OK. For a standard calibration, you must also input the distance between the sensor and the edge of the bin. Do so by clicking on the top blue rectangle labeled Distance from Wall, entering the distance, then hitting OK. Now press Calibrate. Acknowledge the pop-up warning, and the sensor has now been calibrated using the standard calibration method. There are two remaining calibration options for the standard bin: Set Full and Set Empty. Your initial calibration must be performed using either Easy or Standard Calibration. Set Full and Set Empty can be used later to make minor adjustments if there are small errors in the original calibration. You may notice that even though your sensor is reading full based on your original calibration, you may actually have additional space left to fill due to the coning tendencies of wet bin contents. You can choose to top off the bin to fill the extra space if your contents have coned, but we do not recommend using the Set Full button after doing so. Changing the bin's full level after topping off with wet materials that have coned can cause bin overflow if drier contents are in the bin next year. With that being said, to use your Set Full or Set Empty functions, simply press the button and acknowledge the pop-up. Your bin's 100% full or 0% empty levels will be automatically changed to the current distance detected by the sensor. Now let's take a look at hopper style bins. Select Hopper, Select your sensor, and notice the Easy Calibration option is no longer available. For a hopper-style bin, a standard calibration must be performed. The distance between the sensor and the wall height are both entered the same way that they were for a standard bin. However, for a hopper-style bin, the sensor must be mounted halfway between the wall and the top point of the bin roof, even when conducting a standard calibration. There is an additional measurement required for a hopper-style bin. The length of the cone must also be entered. Enter this distance by clicking on the bottom blue rectangle labeled Cone Length. Input the number. Press OK. Now hit Calibrate. Acknowledge the pop-up, and the initial calibration of your hopper-style bin has been completed. Notice that the Set Empty button is not available for the hopper-style bin. This is because of how the signal can bounce off the angle of the cone when there is no grain present. Using the Set Empty button for a hopper-style bin could result in calibration errors. Set Full can be used for a hopper-style bin in the same manner as the standard bin. Simply click on the Set Full button, acknowledge the pop-up, and your adjustment will be automatically completed. The final option available for calibration is a generic bin. Selecting this option will remove the Easy Cal function, but the other functions will be present. The generic bin should only be used in special circumstances. Those may include flat roof bins, bins with a roof pitch other than 30 degrees, use of a non-MTEC bracket for sensor mounting, or if you're unable to set up your hopper-style bin with the sensor directly between the wall and the center of the bin. If you do have a hopper-style bin where the sensor is not mounted halfway up the roof, please contact MTEC for further instructions on performing a calibration on your system. Otherwise, if you have a flat top bin, you can follow the remainder of this tutorial section to perform your generic bin's calibration. Set Full and Set Empty retain their functionality. Use these buttons to make minor error adjustments after performing the initial calibration using the standard calibration function. Enter the distance between the sensor and the contents of the bin when the bin is full by clicking on the top blue rectangle labeled Enter Full Distance and using the numeric input pad. Press OK. Next, enter the distance between the sensor and the base of the bin when it's empty. Click the bottom blue rectangle labeled Enter Empty Distance and enter the value. Hit Calibrate and acknowledge the pop-up. Your sensor has now been calibrated. Now that we've calibrated our bins, we can go back to the main screen and we will see the live readings on our sensors. Here's where those fill bar colors we set earlier come into play. At this point, now that we can fully see everything, we can go back and modify any of those names, notes, and fill bar colors, or we can move on with our setup. For this video, we're going to move on. The last step in our setup is creating our alarm framework. Like we did with the other steps, we're going to press and hold on the fill bar to open the gauge menu. Then we'll click on Alarm to open the Gauge Alarms screen. And we can see that there are a few options available for alarms. We can select Disabled, Display Only, Relay Only, or Display/Relay. If disabled is selected, as it is now, the system will not generate any alarms. If display only is selected, the full view monitor will show an alarm by blinking the fill bar red. The alarm will be generated based on the numbers entered into the bottom section. Let's say we want to generate a high-level alarm when the bin is 80% full. To change that value, we would click on the high trip field, and that will open up a numeric input pad. We would type 80, then hit OK. That's the first half of setting up the high alarm. We also need to determine the point at which we want our alarms to reset. That will be the number to the right of the high field. Right now, we have our alarm triggering when the bin is 80% full with a reset level of 75%. That means that if the bin hits 80% full, the alarm will stay active until the level reaches 75%. If we change that number to 70, then hit OK, now the alarm will be active as long as the bin level is over 70%. The low alarm is set up the same way. Let's change our low alarm to trigger when the bin is 20% full. We'll change that the same way we did for the high level. We clicked on the low trip field, entered 20 on the keypad, then hit OK. Our low alarm is going to reset when we reach the reset percent level. Let's change our reset level to 28%. Then hit OK. Now, our low alarm will be active until our bin level exceeds 28%. Let's go back to the main screen to see that in action. I have a sensor here on a bench setup, and I'm going to demonstrate how changing the levels will trigger and reset our alarms. Recall that our high alarm is set to 80%. When my sensor detects that the bin is 80% full, the fill bar begins to blink red. If I continue to fill the bin, my alarm is going to stay active. If I decrease the bin's contents to 80%, notice that the alarm is still active. That's because our reset level is set to 70%. The fill bar will continue to blink red until we hit our reset level. And now that we've gone below that reset level, our fill bar is back to normal. We can now exceed 70%, and the alarm will stay inactive until we reach 80% again. Likewise, if our bin level hits 20%, we will trip the low alarm. Recall that our low reset level was set to 28%. That means that as long as our bin is less than 28% full, the system will continue to show an alarm. When we exceed our reset level, our alarm will reset. Now that we've seen how the alarm levels work, let's take another look at our other alarm options. Relay and display/relay are our remaining options for alarms. We've covered what the display half of the last option is, but let's talk about the relay portion. There are 5 ports on your full view monitor. The first 4 ports are for sensors to be plugged into the system. The remaining port is labeled RLY. That one is the relay port. The relay alarms are about as complicated as the full view bin monitoring system gets. And this is the portion where we would recommend the involvement of an electrician or someone well-versed in electrical wiring. To use the relay port for alarms, you will need to build a custom cable according to the information in the bin monitoring system manual. When a cable is properly set up and connected to the system, Selecting the Relay Alarm option will enable the pin for this port to send an alarm signal to an external system. Examples can include a 120-volt AC lamp or audible alarm speaker, a motor starter for an auger, a relay that will serve as an external command to a dryer system, or a command to another existing automation system. For more information on how to set up these circuits, please refer to your user manual and contact MTEC with any questions. After making any desired changes to your alarm setup, select Save and then return to the main screen. For more detailed instructions or further assistance, visit the manual for the MTEC bin level monitoring system. You can find the manual on our website or by clicking the question mark on the gauge menu screen and scanning the QR code or typing in the website link on another device. These will both bring you to a support page where you can find our manual and other helpful information. Much of the information in this video is also included in the manual, along with additional details on hardware setup and maintenance. You will also find a section in the manual on troubleshooting, but let's go through a bit of that here as well. The most common issue you may see with your system will be the disconnected error. This error is typically due to a problem with the connection to the sensor plugged into the associated port, and it can usually be fixed simply by checking the connection between the cable and the monitor, or between the sensor cable and the extension cable. Make sure that all connectors are fully seated, are not stripped, and are tightly screwed in with no pins bent or damaged. If the connections look secure, check the cables and sensor for damage. We are now finished setting up your new MTEC FullVIEW bin level monitoring screen.